Okay, get ready to be transported because today we're diving deep into Kotor, Montenegro.
Ooh, I'm excited for this one.
This medieval city is like something out of a storybook, nestled between mountains and the Adriatic Sea.
Sounds incredible. I've always wanted to visit Montenegro.
Well, our source for today's deep dive is an article by a traveler who seems to have a knack for finding these hidden gems. And they describe Kotor as a place where history just seeps out of every corner. Plus, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Oh, wow. That's always a good sign.
Right. So let's unpack what makes Kotor so special, shall we?
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
Okay, so first things first. The history here goes back, get this, like over 2,000 years.
Wow, 2 millennia? That's a lot of history to uncover.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It's been ruled by empires, seen countless battles, and yet it's held on to this amazing sense of independence.
It's like the city itself has a story to tell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of stories, Kotor's old town, they call it Starigrad, is supposed to be where it all comes alive. Narrow cobblestone streets, like a maze, winding through stone houses, churches.
I could just picture it.
I know, right? And all of it enclosed by these massive walls that actually climb up into the surrounding mountains.
That's incredible. I love when cities have those old, preserved structures. You can just feel the history.
Me too. And the article calls out a few must-sees within the old town. One is the Kotor Cathedral. It's Romanesque, dates back to the 12th century. Can you imagine?
Wow, what stories those walls could tell, right?
Right. Okay, and then there's the Maritime Museum of Montenegro.
Oh, I love Maritime Museum.
Right. Well, this one is in a Baroque palace and packed with artifacts, even model ships.
Okay, I'm sold. Model ships are just cool.
Now, speaking of cool, what about these Kotor city walls? They sound intense.
Oh, they're incredible. Imagine like 5 kilometers of these fortifications. Some of them are ancient, climbing up the mountainside.
Wow, 5 kilometers. So we are talking about a serious hike here, right?
Yeah, it's a bit of a climb. They call it the Ladder of Kotor, but those views,
Worth it.
totally worth it. Breathtaking views of the city, the bay, everything.
I mean, 5 kilometers of walls, it makes you realize how important Kotor must have been throughout history, to be that fortified.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a prime location, a gateway between east and west, really.
It does make you want to walk those walls yourself, just to feel that connection to the past.
It really does. It's like stepping back in time. And speaking of stepping back in time, Kotor also has the Maritime Museum of Montenegro.
Right, we were just talking about that with the model ship.
Yes, but they also have these incredible artifacts that date all the way back to the Illyrian period.
Hold on, the Illyrian period,
Oh, I know, right?
that's before the Romans even.
Exactly. It's amazing. We're talking about a time that predates the Roman Empire.
Wow. Okay, so we've got the walls, the cathedral, the museum. Anything else we need to add to the Kotor Old Town must-see list?
You know what I thought was really charming from this article? It was talking about these tiny little squares. Yeah, hidden away in the old town, tucked away in that maze of streets. Each one with its own little character, its own history.
Oh, I love that. It's like these little pockets of hidden history.
Exactly. Some will have ancient churches, some are more like bustling little cafes.
Oh, I love that. Like each square holds its own secret.
Yes. And the article really recommends just getting lost in the old town, wandering through the squares, soaking up the atmosphere.
That's such good advice for any new place, though, right? Just wander and discover.
Totally. It's the best way to get a feel for a place, especially a place as historic as Kotor.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in the old town. What lies beyond these impressive walls?
Well beyond the walls, you'll find the Bay of Kotor. It's often described as fjord-like, although technically it's not a true fjord.
Okay, fjord-like. I'm intrigued.
Picture this, towering cliffs that just plunge into this amazing blue water, the Adriatic Sea. It's this stunning contrast, rugged mountains meeting this tranquil sea.
Okay, fjord-like and azure waters. You're really painting a picture here. I'm already adding, take a boat trip on the bay to my to-do list.
Oh, you absolutely should. And speaking of boat trips, have you heard of Our Lady of the Rocks?
Our Lady of the Rocks, that sounds intriguing. Almost mythical. Tell me more.
Well, Our Lady of the Rocks is actually an island in the Bay of Kotor. It's man-made.
Wait, they built an entire island. How?
It's kind of amazing. It's like a testament to, human determination, centuries of tradition.
Okay, but how?
So back in the 15th century, local sailors started sinking old ships. They would fill them with rocks and sink them in this one spot.
Wow, they really just sank ships to create a base for an island.
Yeah. And they just kept adding rocks over time, gradually expanded it. And today, it's home to this beautiful church, which is where the island gets its name, the Church of Our Lady of the Rocks.
That is amazing. But why go through all that effort to build an island and a church there?
Legend has it that two sailors, caught in a storm, vowed to build a church on that spot. They found a painting of the Virgin Mary,
Uh-huh.
and true to their word, they started sinking those ships. And that's how the island began.
Wow. So it's not just a historical site, it's like a living tradition then, too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Even today, they have a festival, Feixinada, they call it. It's where people sail out to the island and toss rocks into the water,
Yeah.
symbolically reinforcing it.
I love that. Okay, so we've explored the old town, we've hopped on a boat to a man-made island. What other adventures are waiting in the Bay of Kotor?
Well, kayaking or paddleboarding would be fantastic.
Ah.
It's a great way to experience how tranquil the bay is, get a closer look at the cliffs, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I bet. Just gliding across the water, surrounded by that scenery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Peaceful. Or, if you'd rather stay on dry land, there's a really nice scenic road along the coast, perfect for a bike ride. You could explore nearby villages like Dobrota and Perast. It's supposed to be quite charming.
Dobrodum and Paros, I'm adding those to the list. Okay, we've covered the bay. What about the mountains? Weren't there some hiking trails mentioned?
Yes. Kotor is surrounded by mountains, and they are calling to be explored.
Right.
The article mentions two hikes. One is that ladder of Kotor, which we already talked about.
The ancient walls, 5 kilometers.
Yep, and then the other one leads to the top of Mount Levin.
Mount Lovin. Okay, now that rings a bell. Isn't there a mausoleum up there?
That's the one. Mount Lovchen is home to the mausoleum of Peter II, Petrovich Jago. He was a Montenegrin poet, philosopher, and ruler.
They built a mausoleum at the top of a mountain. Wow.
It's quite something, and just getting there is an adventure. It's supposed to be a pretty challenging hike,
Yeah.
but rewarding, with incredible views.
I bet you could probably see all the way to Italy on a clear day, right?
That's what they say.
Wow. Okay, so we've climbed ancient walls, sailed to a man-made island, hiked to a mausoleum. I think we've earned ourselves a nice meal, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I'm starving. And lucky for us, Kotor is known for its cuisine.
What can you tell us about Montenegrin food?
Well, picture this. Mediterranean and Balkan flavors. Fresh ingredients. You'll find everything from fresh seafood straight out of the Adriatic to these really hearty mountain dishes.
Okay, you had me at fresh seafood.
Right. So think grilled octopus, maybe some mussels, a nice flavorful fish stew.
Oh, now I'm really hungry.
And if seafood isn't your thing, don't worry. They have amazing meat dishes, often slow-cooked. And, of course, tons of fresh fruits and vegetables.
Sounds like a foodie's paradise. Anything we should specifically make sure to try?
Well, the article mentions jaguki prout. It's a type of air-dried ham, considered a delicacy there.
Air-dried ham. I'm listening.
It's got this really rich flavor, and is often served as part of a mesa, which is a selection of small dishes perfect for sharing. And, of course, you'll want something to drink with your meal, right?
Always. What kind of wine should we be on the lookout for?
Montenegro is known for its red wines,
Mm-hmm.
especially one called Vranak. It's full-bodied, notes of dark fruit and spice. Perfect pairing for those Montenegrin dishes we were just talking about.
You've convinced me. Vranak and this jaguki prout overlooking the Bay of Kotor sounds like the perfect way to end a day of exploring.
It really does. And one thing that really stuck out to me about the article? It captured the atmosphere of Kotor so well. That feeling of peacefulness, of like coexisting with the past.
Right. The article mentioned that even though it's a popular tourist spot, it's still so peaceful, especially in the quieter hours.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the city itself encourages you to just slow down,
Yeah.
savor the moment, appreciate the beauty around you.
Love that. It's
Yeah.
more than just the sights. It's a feeling you get.
Exactly, that sense of peace, that connection to history, and it's something that stays with you.
Makes you wonder what the secret is, How do they preserve that in today's world?
It's a good question. Maybe it's the location, tucked away between those mountains and the sea. Or maybe it's the people, that deep connection to their history and their traditions.
Probably a combination of things. It
Right.
creates something special. We've talked about the history, the architecture, nature, but it's that peacefulness that really sticks with me.
Me too. It's like you said, it's a feeling.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from the city walls to that delicious-sounding ham. Before we move on, any final thoughts? You've painted such a vivid picture of Kotor with its ancient walls, that stunning bay, and especially that sense of peace you keep describing. If you had to pick just one thing, just one, that makes Kotor so special, what would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's like trying to choose, favorite star or something. But
Yeah.
if I had to, I think it's that feeling of interconnectedness you get when you're there. Yeah,
Interconnectedness.
like you have this weight of history, right? Literally in the walls, the streets. But then there's this incredible natural beauty, the mountains meeting the sea. And then on top of it all, this vibrant culture, but it's both old and new at the same time. It's hard to describe.
It is, but you've done a good job. It really does sound like it all blends together. Okay, I have to ask. Anything else our listeners should keep in mind if they want to experience Kotor for themselves?
Oh, good point. The article did mention that Kotor can get pretty crowded during tourist season. So if you prefer things to be a bit more, laid back, maybe plan your trip for the shoulder seasons, spring or fall.
That makes sense. Less crowded, probably even more peaceful.
Exactly. Oh, and one last thought I wanted to share. As you're walking around Kotor, especially those ancient areas, just take a moment. Close your eyes, imagine the lives that have been lived there, the stories those walls could tell. It adds a whole other layer to the experience.
It does. Stepping back in time. A slower pace of life. Maybe a chance to connect with something we've lost touch with in the modern world.
Exactly. So, as you plan your own deep dive into Kotor, keep your senses open, your mind curious, and your heart ready to be captivated.
Beautifully said. A huge thank you to you for sharing your insights and really bringing Kotor to life for us today. And to our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive and that maybe, just maybe, you'll be adding Kotor to your travel list soon. Until next time, keep exploring.